Hi everyone, welcome to the round 3 game of the Keres Memorial Tournament. And I stated in my previous video, this was a good day. This was a good day for chess. This first game it had a beginning, middle, and end, and not like your typical chess game with the opening, the middle game, and the end game. This was more of an emotional 3-part game. And you'll see what I mean. But it started off not so good, then it got great, and then it got worse, and then it got great again. So 4 parts. This game had not only 3 emotional parts, but 4. And this was a grueling game. This was, I think, a 5-hour game. I was getting up and stretching in the middle of this game because my calves were cramping from tapping on the floor with agitation, and also just sitting down for 5 hours straight. So this was a wild game. The opponent I'm facing, his name is Peter, very nice guy. After this tournament, he skyrocketed in rating. He is much higher rated than I am, but we definitely had an interesting game, and he was a very good sport about it. So let me show it to you. So I played the Ray T like usual, and he played knight f6, which is normal. I played d4, just transposing into a normal d4 position, and he played e6, which is nothing new. I just play c4. This is my standard setup against most defenses, is d4, c4, knight f3. It's basically just a Queen's Indian, or sorry, not Queen's Indian, a Queen's pawn opening, but less flexible because I have the knight on f3, but I usually like the knight on f3 anyways, for central pressure and maybe fianchettoing the light square bishop. But he surprised me. Not surprised me, but I haven't faced this before. He played the Queen's Indian defense, and like I stated before, I do not know much opening theory for d4, c4 positions. It's more of a system opening for me, and I play normal thematic moves. And so I played e3, which is normal. Maybe I could have developed my dark squared bishop to f4 or g5, but I played e3 because I was thinking maybe I'll fianchetto the dark squared bishop to b2 anyways. But then he surprised me here and played bishop a6, which is the Spassky system of the Queen's Indian defense, and one that I know none about. It scores okay for black in the Masters database. It is, I mean, the point is to just apply pressure on this diagonal, even though this diagonal looks a little bit more appealing and a lot more open, and in fact in a lot of the engine lines the engine recommends just dropping the bishop back to b7 anyways. But I continued normally. Bishop d3 is a more common move, but I thought maybe I'll transfer my bishop to f3 since he's abandoned that diagonal. So I played bishop b2, he played bishop b7, castles, and then d5, which I expected. I could just take on d4, d5, and then we trade light squared bishops, and then we have a normal position. I play knight c3 if he takes with the queen, or pawn if he takes with the knight. Maybe I fianchetto the dark squared bishop, or play e4 at some point to kick the knight out. It's a normal game, and this is a theme throughout my games, is I don't know when to take on d4 properly, or on c4 for that matter, and it is something that I've been working on after these games. So he played d5, and I just solidified with b3, which is fine. He castled. I did fianchetto my dark squared bishop. He played knight d7, I played knight d2, or he played knight b to d7, I played knight b to d2. Knight c3 may have been better. I had a plan of defending the c4 square though, or defending the c4 and e4 squares, which is why I played knight d2, and you'll see it. It's not a good plan, and it's this move right here. When he took on c4, I decided to play e4, and the engine doesn't really like this. It's not great. My point was, I thought if he takes on b3, then he hangs a bishop. But that was my point. He can't take on b3 right away. So e4 is a fine move because I'm just threatening to go here, maybe move the knight, and then kick it out here. Unfortunately, this plan doesn't make any sense because he has knight f4 in the end, trapping my bishop. So here, not trapping, but let's play a nothing move. If I go e4, e5, pardon me, he plays knight here, I kick it out, he can go knight f4 here, and my bishop has no squares, it has to stay here. And then once he takes with the knight, I take with the queen. My my pawn is still pinned to the queen. So I'm a little bit tied down. It would be a normal position though. Pardon me, I didn't go for that though, or I expected him to play c5 here, because if I got an e5, b takes on c4, d5, then my position would be good. It's moving forward like a steamroll. So I expected c5, and for some reason I thought that a d5 would be a good move, just gambiting a pawn. And I'm not really sure what was going through my head. It's been a while since I've played this game, about a year ago actually. But for some reason I thought that I had sufficient counterplay, which I didn't. The engine says -2 here. But it took, and I took with the bishop here, which is fine. And now the position is only -1, and this is the critical moment of the game. And, well, the critical moment in the context of this game, because you'll see what happens next. And I was sitting there, and I realized my position is just not good. I'm down a pawn. He has a 3-2 majority on the queen side. With a pawn already on c5, he can play b5, c4, and create a passed pawn eventually, if not right away. And he is going to challenge my dark squared bishop here, because my dark squared bishop is amazing right now. It has a great diagonal. But he can easily just play bishop f6 and basically stunt it, just completely repel it. So those were the thoughts that was running through my head. He also has knight b4. He can transfer the knight to f6, trade queens, be up a pawn, and a better endgame. So this is what I was worried about. And then I started thinking, maybe he's thinking the same thing. Maybe he plays bishop f6. And I started praying to the chess gods, to Kaisa, if you will. And I thought, what if he plays bishop f6? And I walked around, saw some other games. I was feeling a little stressed because I knew my position wasn't great. And then I got back to the board, and for some reason, he played bishop f6. He listened to my prayers, I guess, and he blundered an entire knight in one move. Because it's natural, like I said, you want to counteract this bishop. I guess he thought that I would take, and he can just drop his knight back, and then the position is great for him. He's up a pawn. He's going to kick out my knight on c4 with b5, and everything's good for him. But he blundered a knight in one move. And now, this is where the second phase of the game happened. So obviously I was very happy and a little bit surprised. But I expected him, and I wanted him to resign in one move because I didn't really feel like playing. It had already been a long game, and I wanted it to be over and done with. I was also feeling very hungry. So I was a bit disappointed when he played queen c7 after about 20 minutes of agony. He was not looking very pleased. And here I should just invite the tempo on my queen, and then maybe play queen f5, because it's very hard to kick the queen out of the square. You can't play g6 because you hang a knight. So I should have done that, but instead I played rook d1, attacking the knight, and he decided to trade off the dark squared bishops. The reason I should have taken is because my knight is not great on b2. In fact, it's bad. So I should have forced the issue and traded it myself. But now he plays knight f6 anyways, and I do play queen f5, which is a good square. And I think b5 is a little bit premature because it allows rook c1, and he's basically going to lose this pawn. He plays queen a5 though, counter-attacking the pawn on a2. I defend this with a5. I take with a knight, which does leave the weak pawn on b3, but it basically guarantees the pawn on c5. And if I take it with a knight, then the knight is protecting b3 for the time being. So he does protect that. And I decided to take with the queen, because if he takes, I take back with the knight, and then my pawn is still defended, and he doesn't really have anything here. I'm still up a piece. If this knight ever moves, I'm threatening a fork. So I thought, okay, that's good. Obviously, he didn't trade queens, he dropped back. And then I played rook b1, which is a little bit of a nothing move. There were probably better moves in the position. I'm playing a little bit passively because at this point I really didn't feel like calculating anymore. I had gotten my free piece, I wanted to go home. And obviously this is a terrible mindset to have. And one that definitely came back to bite me because he played h6, giving his king some room. I dropped my queen back trying to trade queens again. He declined once more, and then I moved my knight to c3. And I'm not really sure what I was thinking with this move, because it doesn't threaten anything. Maybe I'm rerouting to d3 or e4, but all it is inviting a pin on c8. So he doesn't pin it. He plays rook b4, which I completely missed. And here I started panicking because I thought, okay, if I go queen here, queen back to c2, then he has rook c8, and I think I'm losing. Fortunately for me, I have knight b7 in this position. Let me just make sure. Yep, we're still good. And if he drops back to here, he's not actually blundering a full queen. It's basically just a queen trade, but obviously I'm still up a piece. So that would have been the way to go. What I played is still fine. I played rook a1 because if he takes here, I just take back and my knight's still defended. I'm also attacking this pawn. I'm gonna double up on the a file. He can't really get this pawn because it's protected by the knight for now. But after rook a1, he played queen b6, and now it was my turn to make a terrible, terrible blunder, and I played rook a6, and now it's back. It's all zeros again. Because my logic was if he takes the rook, I take back with the queen. I'm still up material. But I just failed to realize that he can take the queen first. And then if I take, the pawn attacks my knight in the end. And look at this. I've somehow gotten myself into a symmetrical position. And he's actually just up a tempo with h6. So, not very well played by me. After rook a1 and queen b6, what I have to play is knight a4. Let me just make sure. Yep, knight a4 is good because if he drops back, now I just move the queen. And if he takes the queen, I can take here. Attacking the rook, if he takes the knight, I can take with the pawn, and now I'm up a rook. So that would have been best. Instead, I blundered the game back into a complete draw. So needless to say, I was feeling a little bit dejected at this point, and I really didn't want to play anymore now. I thought I actually offered him a draw, I believe, in this position, or maybe even this position, but he wanted to keep on playing, I guess because he figured, okay, this moron just blundered his piece back. Maybe he's not in the best form. Maybe I can grind out a win here. But this is the next stage of the game. This is the bad, but it does get good. So he plays rook b8, which is fine. I thought, okay, we're definitely going to draw now if we trade rooks, because I'm just going to bring my king in. We're going to trade pawns, and everything's going to be fine. Oh, I should note that I played knight d2 here because I didn't want to allow any knight e4 stuff, and then rerouting to here. It is easy to reroute to target the pawn, but knight d2 I thought was a flexible move, because if he attacks with the rook, I'm going to go here and attack the pawn. So that was an all-purpose move. It also protects the rook here. And I guess he was feeling a bit fancy here. He wanted to try to make some winning chances by playing rook b4. I just took that, and blockaded the pawn. So the position is still equal. All zeros. Oh, I have the engine on, sorry. And now the endgame, basically we're just bringing both of our kings to the middle. But at this point I realized, I may have some chances, some slim chances, because his pawn is further away from his king. I'm already nestling it. I have the possibility of c5 on the horizon. Sorry. And once I play c5, I can bring my king in behind my pawn and attack his pawn. Also, my knight's doing a great job of blockading his pawn. Meanwhile, he can't blockade like this, for example, because I just take. So I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to lose this game. Let's see if I can win it and not draw. So I played king d4, just getting in the middle. And he played king c6, which I thought was the only move, because now on c4 he has king b5, which is exactly what happened, I believe. And now I decided to move up. And now I realized the game is getting interesting now, because I might be faster to dislodge his knight than he is dislodging mine. And what I was calculating here is knight f6, king d3, king d6, pardon me, knight e8, king d7, knight back to f6, and now king c7. And if he doesn't do anything, I'm going to move my king and promote my pawn. Unfortunately, this doesn't work because he can just keep checking me, and if I go here, then it's actually better for him because he has king c4, attacking my knight right away. If I drop back, then he can start pushing. And something like this, where I sack, go here, 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 here. It's probably just a draw. Yep, all zeros, because we get to the pawns at the same time. So that didn't happen. And he did not play knight f6. So this is what I was calculating, and I thought I was completely winning. After I got my king to either c7 or b7, I missed king c4. I only saw king a4, which leaves his king much farther away from the pawns. I believe, I don't remember the exact line, but in my tired 5 hours of chess suffering brain, I thought I was winning, but I wasn't. But he played knight b8 instead, which is the losing blunder, because it doesn't really stop the pawn coming to c6, because his king is going to leave anyways to attack my knight. So I'm going to keep bringing my king up, and at this point I realized the knights are going to be sacked for the pawn, and it's going to be a race to these pawns from both of our kings. It's just a matter of who gets there first. So I played knight d4 check here, getting my knight out of the way of the tempos from the king when it gets to either a4 or c4. And he moved to a4. So knight d4 does seem like a little bit of a waste of time because I'm not blockading the pawn anymore, but I do cover the square. And now I played c6. And this is, I believe this is winning for white now. Yeah, +3. Because like I said, his knight is not actually covering this, because I'm going to be faster to the pawns. So he brings his knight around to a6, but this really doesn't do anything. It does cover the c7 square, but I'm just going to move my king up so he wastes the tempo, I waste the tempo, which is exactly what happens. He goes here, and now this is where I calculated it all out. I realized I was faster to his pawns. I sack the knight on b3. He takes back. I play here. He's forced to take, because there isn't any way for the knight to maneuver to cover the square in one move. So he takes, and as you can see, I am ahead by one file. Even with his one tempo, I am going to get to these pawns first. And the difference between winning and losing here, if I calculated it correctly, was he played h6 while I played f3. So my king is going to reach these pawns first. I only have to reach the f file to collect the pawns, but his king has to reach the g file to collect the pawns, because the f3 pawn is supported by g2. So I do just that. I maneuver to e7. He moves the pawn up. This doesn't really do anything though, because I'm just going to keep attacking the base of the pawn chain, and now my king is just hugging all of the enemy pawns from in behind. And he moves his king here. He's trying to get in here, but unfortunately I'm just too fast to collect these pawns. And this is a good attempt here. He's trying to mix things up, try to swindle me into get a pass pawn on my own. But I just move my king back, because if he takes, I can take here and my h pawn wins, because if he could access this square, then I don't have the pawn pushed because he covers it. But he can only go here, and then I can run the pawn up the board. So that didn't happen. He played g4, hoping maybe that I take here, go here, but it's still completely winning for me. Or hoping... Actually, you know what? I'm not sure what he was hoping. It is a completely losing position. But, you know, I blundered before in the game. Maybe I would screw things up. I didn't, though. I played King G5. He took. I took. And now, one more... Not really a trick here. But... Or actually, a little bit of a trick. If I play something like H4, then it gets a little bit hairy. It's actually a draw now because he takes... I take... Or I don't take, I push, he moves. And we queen at the same time. And it's just a draw. Because I have checks, but his king can always escape them. So instead of falling for all that, I calculated everything out precisely. And I just played King F4. And in this position he resigned because he has to move away from the defense of this pawn. And I have 2 pawns on none. And his king is very far away. So this is a win. So this was truly an emotional roller coaster. I never felt more relieved to stop playing chess after a game in my life. And we discussed the game a little bit after, and we wished good luck to each other in the rest of the tournament. Peter here, he also finished higher than me in the tournament, so well done to him. And good on him for not resigning either, because even if you blunder a piece, there's morons like me to blunder them right back. So, yes, this is my morning game, and I still had the second round game to come, which is my favorite game of the entire tournament. So I can't wait to show it on the channel. Alright, that's everything.